Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today, and we're here with Rodney Jones, and we're very excited to talk to him. Before we go any further, I'd like to remind you that we really appreciate it if you subscribe, ring bells, like our content, share with your friends. It makes such a difference in growing this community. So please do that. And with that being said, we appreciate the maestro, Rodney Jones, here today to hang out with us and tell us what he's been up to. So,
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I second everything you said. Jazz is a music of communication and connection and human connection, and so, you know, liking something or commenting or sharing is a small thing, but it really makes a big difference. If you think a small thing can't make a big difference in your life, Bob, then
yeah.
you've never spent a night in a room with a mosquito.
I've got a mosquito story to tell you, but it'll take too much time. But yes, I'm absolutely. In this case, it really makes an electronic difference because the algorithm that YouTube uses to rate our content is judged by every like, share, follow, and subscription. And what they do with that, for people that don't know that what's going on and why everybody's asking you to do that, is that once you reach a certain plateau, they start recommending your content to other people that like guitar, for example. So you start getting recommended for, and it really helps you grow your channel. And so that's why it's in this case, it's really, really important that people do it. And so we appreciate that. So tell me what's going on with you. I'm listening to you play. You sound fantastic as usual. But I know you got some things that happened in your life. You won a prestigious award. Why don't you tell people about that?
Well, I'm happy to. I was selected to receive a Guggenheim Fellowship, a Guggenheim Award, one of I think four musicians this year who got that award. It's a very small club. They award that for worthy projects and for a life well spent doing something that they perceive has value and sheds a little light and positivity in the world. And that's of course all I'm ever trying to do, whether it's through music or through the things I write or just through the people I meet. I'm always trying to leave everywhere I have been a little brighter than when I got there.
Uh,
And I always try to learn from everybody and also try to share something with everybody. So yeah, I was very honored to receive that. I went to a very upscale fellows dinner where I was there in the company of neuroscientists and other musicians and painters, and I sort of had the out of body experience, like what am I doing here? But it was beautiful. It's an incredible honor. It's something I never really anticipated, but I've spent a lifetime doing that. So I guess it's an acknowledgement for a lifetime spent doing something.
for people that most for people that aren't New York City centric, and there's a few of us out here. Some people don't really understand what Guggenheim is and what that means. I mean, if you're in and around the New York City area or you're into the arts at all, you do understand what that name what cachet that name brings along. So could you just comment just for a moment about the organization in itself and um,
Well,
what they
sure. I mean, I'm not an expert on the Guggenheim Foundation by any means, but they have been people that have funded the arts and sciences as well,
right,
for those people that are making a difference in the world. It was established many years ago by John R. Guggenheim, I believe is his name.
right,
But their commitment, the thing I love about them is they're committed to really bettering the world and the planet through the contributions of those in it. So whether
right,
you're an artist or a scientist or whatever, their objective is not just to glorify, you made so many records or you have a
right.
career. Their metric is something different. And I'll tell you the story of my application. I'd been asked to write two recommendation letters for people that were applying for that Guggenheim Fellowship. And so I just casually mentioned to my wife, "Oh, I wrote these letters," and she's like, "Well, did you apply at all?" I was like, "No, no, I didn't." She said, "Well, why not? If they're people are asking you to write letters for them, maybe you should apply." I was like, "Well, maybe I should." So I applied and I sent in a bunch of stuff, that they requested, And I got a reply back said, "Oh, what you sent in is great, but we really want to understand what it is you want to do. Like, what does it mean to you to do this? It's not enough just to, to have a great resume. There's lots of great resumes, but what's different?" And so then I wrote back from the heart about what I thought real music really meant, the difference it could make in people's lives, and aside from, I mean, I want to play great and I want to be excellent in music, but I'm interested in, you know, not just telling my story, but playing music that holds a space for others to find their story in it.
Sure.
And when I shared it that way, they were like, well, now that's what we want to do. And then that's when I was able to get that award. So it just shows, I was my true authentic self. As great as my career has been, that was not the tipping point. The tipping point was when I spoke from the heart about what it really meant to me. And so I'm very grateful that there is an organization with resources that cares like that. I mean, it's very
Right.
impressive. They didn't have to do it. They didn't have to write back and even say do something. They just could have rejected it out of hand. But they cared enough to say, well, maybe there's something here. Let's go a little deeper. And so, you know, my gratitude to them. The head of the foundation is a general named Edward Hirsch, who's um, a man of deep character and principle. I'm really indebted to the Guggenheim Foundation to have that attached to my name for the rest of my life and beyond. And I'm very honored there. Anyone can Google the foundation and see the fellows, and you'll see the company that they
Right.
say I'm in. And I guess I'm worthy to be there, but I'll let someone else be the judge of that. I'm just doing the best that I can day by day.
They've got a beautiful museum in New York. Is that Sixth Avenue it's on?
Fifth Avenue, I believe.
Fifth Avenue. Okay, I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've been in New York. It borders the park. I once was lucky enough to stay in one of the homes right like 3 or 4 doors down
Wow.
back in the yeah, it was pretty incredible. Back in that would have been in the 90s probably, the early 90s. I was
You
there.
knew somebody.
Actually, no. It was a funny thing. There used to be this thing before BRBO. There was an organization that put together places where people could stay, and it was a kind of a very high end thing. And my business partner at the time, just sought this place out, and we stayed at a gorgeous place in San Francisco, right next to the bridge,
Wow.
and then in this place in New York, and yeah, when we got to where we were going, I went, holy camoli! I mean, we were like right there, and it come to find out that the HOA, the homeowners association of the building, got wind of what she was doing,
I see.
and we were her last clients.
Wow.
But
Wow.
she was
I
very
guess
nice.
that was before you sold your 2 million shares of Bitcoin, I guess. That
Yeah,
was
she was an artist, and she had a trust fund. I mean, she didn't need the money. She did it just to get to know other people and artists and stuff like that. Really cool lady, really, really cool lady. Anyway, well, the Guggenheim is, I mean, for you to get that is beyond incredible. For a, for a jazz guitarist to get that, I think is beyond incredible. I mean, I'm not going to claim that I know if there's any others that have ever gotten it, but I mean,
one other guitar player that plays jazz got it. He's one of my students,
oh,
Rez Abbasi.
okay, good.
And Rez was one of my students at Manhattan School of Music for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And
Well, you
he
got
received it maybe 4 or 5 years before.
you
So,
gotta love it because that's for you personally. I mean, that's a validation and a recognition of a life well spent, if you know what I'm saying. And people have people recognize the value that you bring and continue to bring, and they want you to bring more, and they're making it easy for you, or easier for
easier,
you,
easier.
easier for you. Yeah, I mean, let me correct that. So that is really cool. What are you doing on the playing side?
I've been really busy. There's a beautiful club in Brewster, New York, which is about 75 minutes from New York City, called Uncle Chief. The owner is the saxophone player Ian Hendrickson Smith, who's the horn player, saxophone player with the Roots on the TV show, Jimmy
Oh, wow.
Fallon's TV show. And he's a wonderful. He and his wife opened this beautiful club. It's a world-class club in a small upstate, Hudson Valley town.
Yeah.
Um, but the sound system, they spared no expense to make everything right. The sound system is perfect. The stage is perfect. The equipment is perfect. The food is world class. Everything is right. And the musicians don't have to order off a musician menu. We can order regular food like everybody else. And and I mean, and they compensate us well. And so I've been playing up there once every 3 or 4 months, and I just finished a weekend there this past Friday and Saturday, July 5th and 6th, with Benito Gonzalez on piano and Lonnie Plaxico on bass, and the great drummer Russell Carter. And
Wow.
we did 4 sets of music over 2 nights. And I'll be back there in September doing a duo quartet with myself and Peter Bernstein in the rhythm section, and that's
Wow.
going to be fun as well. And tomorrow night I'm playing with Frank Vignola, which is July 10th, 2024. I'll be playing with him. I love Frank's playing. What a great player and a lovely man, just a beautiful human being. We get along like two peas in a pod. We have different aesthetics, we sort of come from different places, but
Yeah.
the ground we meet is that we love music, we love swinging, we love making it happen, and he knows how to make me sound better, and I know how to make him sound better. And it's really a unique, beautiful thing to experience, and I thank him. It's his gig, and he has invited me to do it. This is the second week in a row to do it, and it's really a joy just to be there. And the great pianist Ted Rosenthal is playing as
I
well.
know Ted's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, good time.
Well, I mean, Frank is one of my all-time favorite people, period. I mean, I told him that, I've got a bromance with him. I mean,
Yeah,
I just love Frank. As a human being, I mean, he's just second to none. And as an authentic guy, you used that term earlier, he's just as authentic as it gets. And his playing is second to none. I mean, he's as good as anybody. And his sense of music, um, and his generosity. And you hit on something. I've got a video of me playing with him, and he made me sound good. And if you can do that, you're a
yeah,
musician.
he's really something. I just will complete the story since you asked. I'm going to be going out to San Francisco to do a week of teaching with Mimi Fox, the wonderful
Oh
guitarist out
yeah,
there.
I love
And so
Mimi.
we're gonna. She runs a jazz program. I think it's California Jazz Conservatory. I believe it's what it's called. But there's a week long program, and I'll be part of that. And then I'm doing a jazz camp with Greg Wochala, who's another great guitarist, a Benedetto artist. I'm just going to go and do a sort of a master class and performance for his students. Then when I come back, I'm going up to upstate New York for the alternative guitar summit or alternative guitar summit. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. Mike Stern, John Schofield, Kurt Rosenwinkel,
Yep.
Lod Hexelman, myself, I believe Camila Meza will be there, and it'll be combinations of playing and teaching together and asking questions. I'm interviewing John Schofield, which should be really fascinating to have someone like myself ask different sorts of questions than a beginner guitar player, or even an intermediate or advanced. But there's a lot of common history John and I share, and I love him, and I'm looking forward to spending time and sharing with him. And then after that, I'm also doing there's a Berkshire jazz camp run by a wonderful trumpet player named Richard Bolger that works to really instill musical values and the love of joy of jazz in students up in Massachusetts, in Western Massachusetts. So I'm going to go up there for 4 days and do that. I've always considered myself a teacher who can play, not a player who can teach. So when I'm teaching these things, no, really, I mean that's my self-identification. So when I'm teaching, that's what I feel like I'm born to do. When I'm playing, it's like, oh, that's something I can do. It's an interesting thing, but teaching is what I feel like I'm there to do. Playing is what I feel like I'm able to do.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I mean, for people that need reminding that you were on the faculty at Juilliard for several years, and
12 years.
12 years, and that little music school,
Yeah, and I've had school of music for 30 years.
the Manhattan School. I mean, you're um, the institutions that employ your services are, the top, some of the top schools in the world.
Well, students don't care what you know till they know that you care. And to be a great teacher, you've got to be willing to plant a tree under whose shade you'll never sit. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with teaching students knowing that their career, the arc of their journey is going to be long after I'm gone, or I won't be part of it. And but I'm okay with that because then they will then have the effect of helping others and offering some love and joy. Art Blakey said music washes away the dust of everyday life. And I think that's right. So anytime you can give people some relief and help them to find their story or to feel better about where they are, that's a worthy thing to spend a lifetime doing. I'm happy to support people to do that.
Well, I mean, my hat's off. As always, my hat's off. I mean, I do know that about you, and I appreciate you sharing it. You know, the thing that is, I guess, it the thing that it's not surprising. That's really the word that I'm looking for. The thing that I admire, let's use that word, about you is that you are a hell of a player. I mean, you like there are no, not as much as it used to be because there are other educators out there that can really play. But 15, 20 years ago, a lot of the guys that educated, they really weren't very, they just,
Yeah.
they really weren't players. And, but I mean, when people talk, when we're watching you play or listening to you play and all that kind of stuff, or I'm talking to other players about you, when your name comes up, it's never like, oh, he's a pretty good player for an educator. They don't even the fact that you do that, the thing that that you identify with is really not even part of the conversation. You're being uh honored, I'm going to say, or you're being talked,
Hailed as.
yeah, just as a guitar player, as a musician, as a guy on the bandstand, if you will. That's not
Well,
a
I give it all. When I play, I intend to give it all,
Yeah.
and to give it for real and to make everyone else in the band sound better. And I'm just grateful. I mean, I live, I have this idealized life, that has had its ups and downs like everyone else. But, to have been associated with Dizzy Gillespie since I was 18 years old and to have, sat at his hand learning jazz, it pretty much says it all. And then Lena Horne as well, and Chico Hamilton and Ruth Brown, the great rhythm and blues singer. And, I've just have been able to be around these, and I've seen, these masters of music, and I've seen the level of devotion and care that many of them, not all of them, but many of them have. And it inspired me to do that, and I'm inspired by something my father told me. My father was a minister for 60 years, and he told me, he said, you're never going to be judged by God by did you succeed, but you're going to be judged by did you try. And I have taken that to my musical career,
Right.
maybe I don't play everything perfectly, whatever, but whenever I have the guitar in my hand, there's never a time when I'm not giving 100%. I'm not ever phoning it in. I'm not ever, trying to fake it. I'm always trying to fully be present and make the music happen. So I think that people respond to that, and also, like Frank is the same way. I don't come with an agenda. I don't come to make it, to prove anything or to make anyone uncomfortable. I come to just have a good time and to give the audience something of value. Because they don't get the time back. People can get more money. You don't get more time.
Right.
Someone's going to spend 2 hours of their life. They're not going to get those 2 hours back. So what am I offering of value for them?
Right.
And so I endeavor to do that and to be a true, genuine, authentic, accessible a human being. The way I feel about it is I'm a beggar just like everybody else. I just know where there's some food. You know, and the music is the food. If you don't play music, we're all beggars in the world. We're all trying to figure it out. But I have a place where I can go and receive sustenance, which is this music. And not many people have that if they don't play. And if they
Right.
don't receive that food offered to them through people who do play for that reason, they still don't get nurtured. So
Well,
that's my job.
every time I've seen you play, I will, you always look like you're having a good time and you're so comfortable in your skin.
You ever seen Wes Montgomery play?
Yeah.
One of those videos? I
Yeah.
mean, does anyone look more at ease? He's playing the most incredible, like Mount Everest of jazz guitar, and he's looking like he's like, I think I'll get pizza later. He's looking, looking around. So I was inspired by that. I'm like, if he can do it, maybe I can do it.
Well, there's not that many guys a lot of guys have got that guitar face thing going on. And
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that and all, but there's something to be said for somebody you just where you feel like you just know they're comfortable.
Yeah.
They're making when they're comfortable, they're making music, for their audience, and they're there to communicate and
And I consider the audience part of the band.
oh yeah,
So
well
I'm
they are.
not playing at them. I'm playing for them and with them,
Yeah.
to have this experience.
Yeah, well, there's a vibe, there's a give and a take, and that's incredibly important. And it's not just if they applaud at the end of the tune. You can it's palpable in the room if there's a connection. But just you mentioned something earlier. There's two things I wanted to talk about. We got you know you mentioned some of the people that you played with, and every time I look at your list, I just go, huh, what? And I can't go through all of them because there's just too many of them. But you know, you recorded with Ray Brown, Kenny Burrell, Larry Coryell, who I was a favorite of mine for a long time, Dizzy Gillespie, Chico
Chico.
Hamilton. I'm sorry, I'm not reading well. Christian McBride.
I'm going out to LA with him to play at the Hollywood Bowl in early September, and I'm doing a workshop at USC the day before. That's going to be fun.
Man, you gotta love that. That is such a cool thing because you know, he obviously he can pick anybody he wants, you know, and his music is, authenticity. He's all about that. And so for him to identify you and say, hey, I think that you're my parallel on your instrument, in terms of the
A
vibe.
deep honor. I'm doing his next record with him in September also. He is Christian is one of those generational geniuses on his instrument. He's a brilliant writer, arranger, composer, a real savvy business person, and someone who loves what he's doing. I don't really love traveling all the time and always playing before people and
Yeah.
always being out there, but he does, and he fulfills his life like he loves what he's doing, and I really admire that. But yes, you're right; it's an honor because he can hire anybody, and
Anybody.
so whenever he calls me, I'm honored. I give 100%. I do my very best. I think what I bring to the party is years of experience. I bring, if I'm, he called me and we did a tribute to Frank Sinatra and Peggy Lee, and it was a bunch of all-star thing and a bunch of celebrities.
Yeah.
Well, I've played that music for 40 years, so I'm not guessing what to play. I know the right things to play, when to fill, when to not fill, where to voice the chords, when to give the singer their note, when to not give the singer. Like that's something that experience has taught. And I think that's the value because lots of people can play, but there's some players who just have a lot of experience. Russell Malone's someone who has a lot of
Oh
experience in that
yeah,
kind of stuff
absolutely.
too. But there are other players who are really great but don't have that kind of experience. So, I'm not the only guitar player that he calls, but he calls me for certain sorts of things, particularly for his big band things because I like playing Freddie Green style and I like being part of a big band. I like that. And I've done some small group things with him too. I was part of his Tip City trio.
Yeah.
When I left, then he hired Dan Wilson, and that became Dan Wilson's job after that.
It's funny. I once did sound for him on a gig. There's a club in Atlanta that he came down to play, and at that time they did not have a full-time sound man, and I have a background in that, and so I had to sound checks at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that, as a trio, piano trio, and he comes uh he comes walking in right about the right time, and I introduce myself, and and I gave him a little tip on the room because I felt like it's just something that he would need to know. But anyway, so he said okay, well good. So they do the sound check, and he plugs his bass in. We get a tone up. He goes okay. The piano player gets this thing up. Okay, drummer, everything okay. I mean, we're talking that whole time frame was like a minute and a half.
Yeah,
And then he goes, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they kick into something. They do about 10 measures, maybe 12. And he looks at the drummer. He says, you okay? Yeah. He looks at the piano player. You okay? Yeah. That's it. We're done. And
yeah.
he's walking out the door. Now we're talking, we got 5 minutes has gone by, right? And he goes, so how's that for sound check?
Yeah. Well, that's experience, and you know
And he winked at me because he knew, he just knew,
yeah. I mean, he has so much experience. He knows immediately if it's going to be right, and he knows immediately if you're right.
Yeah, it was really well. That particular room, the bass, it's a little bass happy. It's got a big resonant, and it was. I just said this is something you may or may, with your experience, you maybe not need it, but sometimes anyway, no big deal. But anyway, but he was great. He was really really great, and of course the show was
He
great.
is.
And he's got a vibe. His vibe is I can see you two guys getting along on stage.
Yeah, we do. I mean, he's a consummate professional. He's a virtuoso,
Oh yeah.
uh, and he is a virtuoso on the electric bass and the upright bass.
Right.
And I've been around some of those people. Marcus Miller is someone I was around when I taught him bass lessons when he was a kid. Who was a virtuoso. Kenny Kirkland's another one who's a virtuoso. Not everybody is a virtuoso. George Benson is a virtuoso, and then there's the rest of us who play really well and are who find the value in the music.
Well, I got a couple more questions for you. Um, One is you mentioned something that I'd like you to just touch on a little bit, and that's the difference. You didn't mention this, but I'm gonna you made me think of a question that I've been asking people a lot lately. The difference when you're playing in a combo, people that don't have a lot of experience playing in a band, small band, piano, guitar, bass, drums, maybe a horn, maybe not a piano, you know, what what are you listening? What's the key to being good at that? And I know you're going to say ears. You got to listen. You got to listen. You got to listen. But can you add something that what well, a lot of guys just aren't very good at it.
Yeah, well, for me, the key first and foremost, before ears and all that, is to not believe it's all about me.
Right.
That's the key. To go into that environment and say, what's going to make the music sound the best?
Right.
And if I can do that, then I'll find my space to shine. I'll find my place to do whatever I'm going to do. But my first thing is to say, what is going to make the music the best? Is that determines the volume, whether how much I'm playing, how much I'm not. If the piano player is busy, I'm not busy. If he's in a low register, I'm in a high. If he's in a high register, I'm in the low. If he's playing single notes, I'm playing chords. If he's playing chords, I'm playing single notes and fills. Where's the drummer's beat? The guitar has the rhythm section, or am I part of the harmonic portion of the group? These are all judgments. Do I play things that lead the horn player to play other things, or do I play things that support where he already is? How do I parse that? It is this magical, intuitive, experiential thing that happens, but it all begins with a willingness to not say, "Well, I'm Rodney Jones. Don't you know I'm going to do me." I never enter that space. My thing is, I'm Rodney Jones, and I'm here to make the music sound as good as possible. That's what I do.
Man, that's the best answer anybody's ever given me.
You always say that about me.
Yeah, well, it's because it's true. I mean, I love it, Rodney. I love your vibe, man. I love what you do. I love you, man. I love you, man.
It's mutual, man. Let me just say something. People don't realize the depth of work and effort and what it is to do what you do, man. You are the John Coltrane of this thing, man. You are, and I admire and love and respect what you do. Everybody that's out front taking the bows are not the heroes. Some heroes don't wear capes, and you're one of them.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm just gonna say thank you because anything else I'd say is gonna sound like
That'll be the lead of the article.
yeah.
That'll be the lead. Some heroes don't wear capes, and I'm one of them by Bob Bakert. There it is.
Well, but I mean it's really important to understand, and that happens dynamically within a piece. I mean all of that stuff. What you're talking about, like, am I part of the rhythm section here, or am I part of the harmony? What am I doing here? And that happens dynamically within the piece, and having the knowledge that what's going to make in reconciling that with how do I make this sound as good as I can make it sound.
And the key for all of that, Bob, is what is the appropriate thing to play.
Right.
If you play the appropriate thing and play it beautifully and brilliantly and magnificently,
Right.
that's great. But if you play the right thing in the wrong place, it's going to be wrong. If you play the wrong thing in the right place, it's also going to be wrong. So you've got to play the appropriate thing at the appropriate time and that's it. And if you want to talk specifics, if you the first thing is you've got to make the rhythm happen. You've got to be rhythmically locked in with where the rhythm is. You
Right.
can't be, the one man marching one direction and the rest of the band is going the other direction. You got to see where the consensus of the band about what it's going to feel like, and then make that as good as possible. Because as a guitarist, particularly, I don't have the power with the guitar to change the rhythm section. The bass can do that,
Yeah.
drum can do that, and to some extent the piano can because of the volume. But guitar can't really do that in that same way. So I try to find who's what is the lock between the bass and the drums, and how do I fit in with that based on what the piano player is doing. Or if there's no piano, then how do I fill that space and make it happen, or how do I leave space for something else to happen.
Well, yeah, that's that's what's that. Anybody that wants to know, just put this on a tape loop and keep listening to Rodney say this, because that's incredibly important, and it's spot on.
I'll send you my PayPal.
Don't send it to me. I'm broke.
We can post it. Anyone that found that with them helpful, the
We'll
PayPal link
definitely
will be
post it. We'll
included.
definitely post it for sure. Um, let me see. There was one other thing I was going to ask you about. It was maybe that's it. I don't know. Anything else you want to add?
Another one. Oh my God, that was the big windup. I'm waiting for the second question.
Oh, I know. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was I had something about playing in combos. Um,
Well, rule number one, because you and I are about the same age, I think.
I'm a
So,
little older than you.
well, I don't know how old you are, but rule
I'm
number one.
I'm 73.
Okay, so I'm 67. Okay,
Okay.
so
Well, not that. Yeah. Okay.
here's the point. De facto, going to a gig, never call it a combo because you're immediately like one step from Bodo Diodo 23 Skidoo.
I know.
Like
I
if you
know.
call it a combo, immediately the younger players you're playing with are like, oh, this guy. You
I know.
know,
You know what the school that I went to, they would call it, they would call that class combo, and I always like, oh,
yeah.
but
And the other thing I think is important, Bob, is that I've never lost my sense of curiosity about the music and what's possible. It's not
right,
a child. It's not a childish thing, but it's a childlike thing. I hear music and it's still mysterious to me.
right,
Even and I do certain things to keep that deliberate. For example, solos that I really love by other people, I never learn or analyze because I want them to be magic. I want to hear every time I hear it, I want it to be magic. Like, what is that? Oh my God, what is that? I don't want to be like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, he's using the melodic minor. That takes the fun out of it for me. And that's an ability I have in my own head that I've had since I was a young boy, which is I can become the listener and turn off my brain that knows music. And I hear music like everybody else. I don't know the chords. I don't know the key. I couldn't tell you what they're playing. I can just enjoy it. Or I can switch hats and know exactly what it is, analyze it, know all of it. But I can choose which Rodney is showing up. And that is so great because when I hear great players, I don't want to go hear, I don't want to listen to John Coltrane in concert and spend my time analyzing, well, oh, he was using the melodic minor. Oh, this is the Locrian scale he used here, and he did. No, that's not the. I want to experience the music in my heart. The heart intelligence.
right,
There's three intelligences that musicians use.
right,
There's the mind intelligence, which
right,
is the weakest. There's
right,
the ear intelligence, which is better than the mind intelligence, the next
right,
best thing. But the evolution of that is the heart intelligence,
right.
which is where does the music land in my heart and others? That's the thing. When it resonates there, I'm good.
But when I go see a show, I don't really see as many as I for the last 7 months. I haven't seen anything, to be honest. Um, but if I'm going to a show and I'm going to see somebody that I want, and I'm paying attention to the music on an analytical basis, then I'm not having fun.
You're not getting fed.
Yeah, I want to go and to be just as, just be just as mesmerized by what's happening, and just turn it off, and just really, really, dig what's going on this, on the stage, and not even think about it. I kind of, one of the analogies I will say that if you're doing that, it's like taking a hike in the mountains and having your nose in the topographical map instead of
Yeah.
looking at the mountains in front of you.
Or reading a great menu for a fantastic restaurant but never ordering the food.
All of the above. You got to get out there and just let it come in. And when it does that, then, then you've done then you're part of the art.
Welcome to two old jazz musicians in conversation, already in progress.
Well, you're right about that. So, what else is going
We're
on?
talking about, because we're talking about world lessons. Word lessons are teaching at Juilliard, teaching at High School of Music, what this scale is, this mode. But world lessons is what you learn through living, what you learn in the bandstand, what you learn through your journey, and that is always the higher expression. The best parts of music are always caught and never taught.
Well, that I would agree with you. Well, the other thing that you'd see is, you know, it's how is this making me feel, not how is it making me think.
Yep.
And if I'm listening, if I'm listening to a lot, and I have in the past, I've gone listen to a lot of musicians play at the jam sessions where the younger guys that are in school or just out of school, and I'm listening to them play all their lessons over their solos in the jam sessions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not listening to them make music. I'm listening to them doing that. And then obviously as they get older, and older is not necessarily, I should say more musically mature. They don't have to be very old, you know. But then all of a sudden it changes. You don't hear that. You hear melodies, you hear harmonies moving, you hear stuff that's going on, and that's what you're into.
Well, we all start from somewhere, and I think Wes Montgomery, he did that interview, you've probably seen it, and the guy says, well, Wes, you're one of the great guitarists, and Wes, I'm paraphrasing, he says, no, I'm not. And the guy's like, yes, you are. And he says, no, I don't play guitar. And the guy's like, Wes, you're Wes Montgomery. And he said, yeah, but he said, guitarists are like Kenny Burrell and, Barney Kessel, those are guitarists. He said, I'm not a guitarist. And the guy said, well, what do you mean? He said, I just use it. I use the guitar to play the music I feel. But I'm not a student of the guitar, I'm a student of the music. Right. And I use the guitar to serve the means of the music, not to learn the guitar. And I find that I've endeavored to always be both. Because as a teacher, whenever I learn something, I always ask myself, if I had to explain this to someone, what would I say? While I'm learning it in real time, I'm saying, if I'm going to explain this to someone, what would I tell them? Both about the process of how I'm learning it and what to expect. And, and then I say, well, once I know it, then forget it. Then once I know it, then it's not about the journey of learning it. It's about the wisdom from applying it.
Right.
Yeah, like we talked about playing A blues and playing the blues. It's good to play A blues and play all A blues you want.
Right.
But when you say, my life story, it's connected in this way, and you play that, it has a power and a reach that the other thing does not.
No, that's really, really good. Rodney, thank you, man. Thanks for coming on board today and sharing your wisdom. And any recent recordings that you want to remind people of?
The Infinity of Things is one that's available on Bandcamp. I'm Rodney Jones. If you go to Bandcamp and type in the Infinity of Things, there's a lot. I think I have 20 CDs worth of material up there in all different styles. My email address, I don't mind saying it publicly, is Soul Manifesto, SOULMANIFESTO, soulmanifesto@gmail.com. And I do teach online and some in person and stuff. So, but that's it. Yeah, I'm just a real person doing my best to, I'll close with this.
Yeah.
The thing I believe, well, if I were going to have one of two things on my tombstone, I've told my children, I'll be cremated, but if I were going to have a tombstone, it would be this. The first thing it would say is this. See, I told you I was sick. That's the first thing it would say, And then the second thing is this. Everything in life happened for me. Nothing in life happened to me. Meaning that I don't consider myself a victim. I think everything is an opportunity to grow. You can't climb a mountain that's smooth. And so the mountain of life, the mountain of music requires obstacles and walls in order to give me the strength to learn how to climb and to learn how to go up the mountain. I have to pull myself up on something. There's nothing there to pull myself. I'm going to slide right back down. So that's the first part. The second part is I believe and I know in my heart that everyone, no matter their walk of life, who they love, how old they are, their race, religion, gender, creed, don't care about that. I believe everyone's life has value and matters, that it's important, that the journey people take has a value. Now, it may take a lifetime to discover that, or you might know that very early on. But I think that's a worthy pursuit but it begins with accepting, I have something here. It's not about being Rodney Jones or Wes Montgomery or Grant Green. It's about being the best you.
Right.
Being the best you can be. And that's something that no one else can be, and you are enough. That's what I know about everyone I meet, that they're enough, and I know that about them. Whether they know about them is another thing. So then my work in the music is to help them to get to the point where they recognize, you know what? I think there's something here I could do. And I'm like, yeah, you got
Rodney, I love you, man. I do. I,
it. Love you too, Bob.
and
Thanks for
with
all you
that,
do and all that you are. And
oh man, I'll tell you. And
we're
with that,
brothers, my friend. We're
Bob,
brothers.
Bob Bakert with Rodney Jones for Jazz Guitar Today, and we got to connect up again in a couple more months and refresh all this. I love.
I mean, Herb Wong. Do you remember him, the writer?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Herb Wong was a very famous jazz writer in the 60s and 70s and through the 80s actually, and he did an interview with me I think in 1991 or something like that, and and I didn't know what he was going to say, but when
Yeah.
the interview came out, he said Rodney Jones was like the Tony Robbins of jazz guitar, and I said to my wife, I said, you see what he said? My wife was like, yeah, basically that's what it is, that's kind of. I was like, it is. It is. I thought I was just playing jazz guitar. He said, "Well, you're kind of like the Tony, all the uplifting, life coaching stuff. You are kind of that guy." I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am that guy." So I'm comfortable in my own skin. I am that guy.
You are that guy. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
All my love.
Talk to you soon. Same back at you, Rodney.
Well, thank you
Take care,
everybody
man.
for listening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, buddy. Bye bye now.
Bye bye. Take care.